For years, we were told the system was strong, that markets always recover, that central banks could fix anything with just a little more liquidity. But in 2025, the silence has been broken. Inflation hasn't cooled, it's mutated. Debt hasn't stabilized, it's exploded. And the global economy, once fueled by cheap credit and blind optimism, is quietly falling apart. Supermarkets are raising prices weekly. Small businesses are collapsing under loans they can't refinance. And behind every optimistic headline, the numbers tell a different story. This isn't a recession anymore. It's something deeper, something systemic. The warning signs are no longer hidden, they're everywhere.
After 2020, governments printed their way out of panic. Stimulus checks, corporate bailouts, quantitative easing. Money poured into the system like water on a dying plant. And for a while, it worked. Markets soared, cryptos returned, unemployment fell. But it wasn't real growth. It was engineered euphoria. When you flood a system with fake money, you don't fix the roots. You just hide the cracks. By 2024, those cracks became impossible to ignore. Interest rates were raised to fight inflation, but every increase made debt costlier, and every borrower weaker. Central banks found themselves trapped in their own creation. They could either save the economy or save the currency, not both.
In 2008, it was mortgages. In 2020, it was stimulus. But in 2025, it's everything. Global debt has crossed $350 trillion. Governments owe more than they can ever repay. Households are living on borrowed time. Each rate hike breaks another link in the chain. Each default adds weight to a system already collapsing under itself. Japan can't escape deflation. Europe is drowning in energy costs. And the US, the world's financial heart, is bleeding from within. The dollar, once untouchable, is now being questioned. Nations are quietly diversifying away from it. De-dollarization is no longer a theory. It's an escape plan.
For decades, central banks played gods. They could print money, cut rates, and make crises disappear, at least on paper. But every solution created a bigger problem. When inflation hit, they said it was transitory. When rates rose, they said it was necessary. When markets crashed, they said it was contained. Now, the truth is out. The very tools designed to stabilize the economy have destabilized it. Quantitative easing made billionaires richer and the poor invisible. Interest rate hikes punished savers, renters, and small businesses alike. And the irony? The same institutions that caused the crisis are the ones pretending to fix it. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. In the 1930s, it began with overconfidence. In 2008, it began with greed. In 2025, it began with denial. The Great Depression was triggered by over-leveraged markets. The 2008 crash by reckless lending. Today's crisis by decades of borrowed prosperity. Every bubble needs a story to justify itself. Ours was infinite growth. But growth built on debt isn't growth at all. The same yield curve that warned before every major crash, from the Great Depression to 2008, is now flashing again. This time, it's deeper, longer, and eerily quiet. It starts small. A bond market tremor in Japan. A banking crisis in Europe. A tech layoff wave in the US. Individually, they look like isolated events. But together, they're the dominoes falling. The supply chain disruptions of 2020 never truly healed. Energy costs remain volatile. And inflation, once temporary, has become structural. As wages fail to keep up, the middle class shrinks. Savings disappear. Confidence collapses. And when confidence dies, so does the market. Every collapse has a moment. A point where illusion meets reality. For 2025, that moment came when bond yields refused to fall. Investors realized the math no longer worked. Governments could only roll over debt, not repay it. Markets froze, credit tightened, and suddenly liquidity, The one thing keeping everything alive vanished. Even major corporations began defaulting. Banks quietly restricted withdrawals, and the global economy entered a silent panic. But unlike 2008, there was no one left to bail it out.
This is not the end of the world. It's the end of a cycle. Every empire, every system, eventually reaches a breaking point. And in that collapse, something new always emerges. Innovation follows destruction. Discipline follows chaos. Truth follows illusion. The world is beginning to rebuild itself around new ideas, digital currencies, decentralized systems, alternative assets, energy independence. But before rebirth, there must be reckoning. For investors, savers, and ordinary people, this isn't a time for fear. It's a time for awareness. Because understanding what's happening is the first step to surviving it. The crash didn't look like the movies. There were no riots in the streets, no sudden explosions of panic. It was quieter, a slow suffocation. Markets stopped moving. Banks stopped lending. Governments stopped pretending. And suddenly, silence replaced confidence. People began hoarding essentials, not because they wanted to, but because trust was gone. Corporations that once boasted billion-dollar valuations vanished overnight. Startups with infinite funding dried up as investors disappeared. The digital economy, the one built on promises, collapsed under its own weight. In that silence, people began asking the one question no one wanted to face. What now? When money dies, power changes hands. In the old world, influence belonged to those who controlled capital, banks, hedge funds, governments. But after the collapse, a new kind of power began to rise, one built on resources, not reserves. Energy-producing nations suddenly became kings again, countries rich in oil, gas, lithium, and rare earths. Their currencies stabilized while others crumbled. Meanwhile, the West's illusion of infinite credit faded. For the first time in decades, the US faced a harsh reality. The dollar could no longer command obedience by default. In Africa and Asia, quiet alliances formed. Trade shifted away from the dollar, and a multi-currency world began to take shape. The global South, once dismissed, was now dictating terms, and the empire that once ruled with its printing press was forced to adapt or fade. In the ashes of the old system, a new experiment began. Central banks introduced their digital currencies, CBDCs, promised as innovation, marketed as convenience, but in truth, control wrapped in technology. Every transaction traceable, every wallet programmable, every citizen monitored. For many, it was safety. For others, it was a digital prison. Meanwhile, independent cryptocurrencies found a second wind, not as speculative assets, but as lifeboats. Communities began to build parallel economies, peer-to-peer, borderless, untaxed. The digital revolution that began with dreams of freedom was now at war with its own creation. And once again, history rhymed. Power shifted from paper to code. The collapse didn't affect everyone equally. For the wealthy, it was an inconvenience. For the working class, it was a reckoning. Those who owned assets survived. Those who rented suffered. In major cities, luxury districts still sparkled under neon lights, while just a few blocks away, middle-class families rationed food and electricity. Inequality, once hidden behind data charts, became visible. The divide was no longer about class. It was about access. Access to clean energy, access to stable currency, access to truth. And in this new economy, trust became the rarest commodity of all.
Every collapse, no matter how brutal, leaves behind one thing: a chance to rebuild. Communities began forming local networks, trading goods directly. Small farmers regained importance. Skilled labor, once undervalued, became essential. Innovation didn't die, it evolved. Energy grids went off the main systems. People turned to solar, microhydro, and local supply chains. New startups focused on resilience, not profit. It was messy. It was raw. But for the first time in decades, it felt real. The world was learning, painfully, that sustainability isn't a slogan. It's survival.
Not everyone rebuilt with honesty. As traditional systems collapsed, the underground thrived. Black markets exploded, trading in gold, crypto, and foreign goods. Governments tried to suppress them, but failed. The shadow economy became the real economy. Former bankers became brokers of digital assets. Former tech developers became crypto forgers. Even law enforcement quietly joined the trade. The collapse blurred morality, because when survival is the goal, rules stop mattering. This was the dark mirror of the new world, where freedom and lawlessness coexisted in the same breath. And yet, amid chaos, beauty returned. Artists, thinkers, innovators, those silenced by corporate algorithms, began creating again. Without ad budgets, without brand alignments, creativity became raw, emotional, and human. People rediscovered meaning, not in markets, but in connection. The world slowed down. Communities shared food instead of profits. Work became about purpose, not prestige. From the ruins of globalization, a new kind of civilization emerged. Smaller, smarter, and painfully aware of what it had lost. This wasn't progress in the old sense. It was rediscovery. By 2030, the new map of power was unrecognizable. The US was no longer the world's unquestioned leader. China and India co-led a new trade bloc. Digital currencies had replaced 80% of paper cash. Artificial intelligence ran logistics, banking, and even governance systems. But humans, the ones who survived the crash, had learned a lesson no algorithm could teach. You can't automate trust. You can't simulate empathy. And you can't replace humanity with code. The world had reset, not by design, but by necessity. And those who adapted became the architects of the next century. In the end, the 2025 collapse won't be remembered for the numbers, not the debt, nor the charts, nor the inflation rates. It will be remembered as the year the illusion broke. The year humanity realized that money isn't wealth. Stability is. That growth without balance is destruction. That comfort without discipline breeds collapse. Every generation faces its reckoning. Ours came quietly, through headlines, through layoffs, through empty shelves. But from that silence, something timeless emerged. A reminder that value is not printed. It's earned, created, shared. And as the world moves forward, those who understand that truth will shape the next age, the age after collapse.